Hello, and welcome back to the Gayming Podcast Live. I'm your host, Miabyte, and we're here every 2 weeks to talk gaming stories, news, and gossip with your favorite content creators. Now, every podcast, I'm joined by an awesome guest host, and today, once again, because it's DigiPride, and because, you know, we love him, we know him, we love him, he's the cool guy at Gaming Mag. It's the lovely Robin Gray. Woo, round of applause, yeah.
Hello.
How you doing today?
I'm good. You?
I'm exhausted, honestly. I've been sick the last couple of weeks, and it is not finished yet. I don't know what happened. I think I came back from TwitchCon, and I was fine, and then I just felt terrible for like the just like a baseline of being awful, like all the way through.
The delayed conlurgy.
Yeah, delayed conlurgy, but like I
which does sound like an Italian dish. Delayed conlurgy.
I'd rather not be tasting the delayed conlurgy, personally. Chef, take it back to the kitchen, please. I don't want it. So if I seem a little bit groggy today, that is probably why. I'm going to try and like keep the energy up, though. But it's one of those things where it's just like I just like have low energy all the time right now, and like I'm constantly congested, but I just don't know what it is. And I haven't taken a COVID test yet because I'm too scared to at this point.
Well, and they cost money in the UK now.
And they do. Well, technically, I'm immunocompromised, so I can get them for free. So,
well,
yeah.
Well,
you still have to order them.
Enough of the politics.
Yes. What? Oh yeah. Sure. All right.
The politics.
The politics.
Yes. I mean, look, I am super hyped for this episode, being our tabletop.
Me too.
Our tabletop special.
It is. It's our tabletop special.
We had a great episode with it last year. We had a fantastic chat with Jeremy. I'm so happy that he's back. We are honored to have someone sort of very, very senior from D&D with us, almost in the building. He's on his way in just a little while. But before we get started, just a quick reminder for those of you joining us live, you can interact with us right here on the Twitch chat or in a very special place on the Gaming Magazine Discord. And of course, don't forget you can keep up with all the latest news, comings and goings with Gaming Magazine at gaymingmag.com, GAYMING mag.com.
And of course, once more, things are a little bit different on the podcast today because it's currently DigiPride. I just happened there. It is currently DigiPride. This is the lurgy. It's the delayed conlurgy. Again, take it back. It is currently DigiPride across all of gaming, isn't it?
It is indeed, and you can go and check out everything we've got on, everything that's been and everything that is still to come at DigiPride. On DigiPride, you got me at it now. At gaymingmag.com/DigiPride.
Why do they let us have a podcast? What is this?
I
don't
know. But we're here. We're here. We're queer, and we're just getting on with it.
Absolutely. But it also means that today we have two special guests because it is a tabletop special, and there are going to be some amazing guests on the podcast today.
It absolutely is. And yes, I was about to say, I've alluded to the fact we're joined by the wonderful Jeremy Crawford a little bit later on, but to start off, we are joined by the wonderful creator behind the award-winning Adventuring with Pride supplemental series, the fantastic Jack Dixon.
Hello.
Sorry, I don't have an applause button, so I am the applause button.
Need the soundboard.
I suggested a clap button, but it didn't come across right.
So welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am definitely here. I'm very tired, but I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
It's a general feeling. This is going to be an amazing podcast, by the way. If you're listening or watching to this, you can already tell this is going to be.
So the title of it is Gaming Podcast. We're all a bit tired.
Yeah,
we're all a bit tired. Yeah.
It's a Sunday, you know.
We're Brits on a Sunday evening. We're just all a bit tired. It's 9 o'clock.
It's been really warm today. We don't do well in the warm.
Oh, don't.
That's true. It's been way too hot.
Chat again. But it's getting hot again here.
It's the Gaming Mag Podcast. This is what we do. We do weather chat. We always do weather chat. It's one of the things that we do. But you know what? Yeah, let's avoid the weather chat, even though it's been way too hot for our little British souls to handle. Because instead, it's time for the weekly recap where we cover all the nerdy type stuff that we've been doing recently. But I'm going to let you go first, Robin, because I've been talking too much already and I need a drink. So
things I've been doing. I've been out in the real world. I've been doing sports or been watching sports in the real world. I know,
Sports.
very trying to lower the tone of a queer podcast.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
obviously,
Commonwealth
Birmingham.
Games?
Yes, Birmingham has been
Yeah.
hosting the Commonwealth Games, or the Invasion Games, or the Domination Games, or whatever you want to phrase that.
The
But
post-colonialism games.
yeah, the sorry about that. Sorry, games. But no, I was at the athletic stadium the other night. That was really cool. I was at the cricket today. That's really cool. Wonderful watching some queer athletes out in the wild as well. So it's all good to see, very positive. And of course, we've been running our Pride House activation, our gaming arena at Pride House, a big celebration of queer games that people can come and try. Well, they could have. It's finished now. But they could have come and tried out. And a wonderful esports panel that we had with fantastic people like Stresscast and Captain Fluke and that sort of thing as well. So that was really cool. And you might see little bits of that cropping up in the near future, TBC this coming week. What have I been playing? So Nintendo had a sale. It's very rare for Nintendo to have a sale, but Nintendo had a sale.
It's dangerous to have a sale.
Their Switch multiplayer stuff, and there's like 80% off the remaster of
80% off? That's crazy.
Need for Speed Hot Pursuit.
Okay, that's not like okay.
You had to be excited.
Why do I do this? Why do I do this podcast? Just to admit how shit I am at awful games. But no, so look, it was £6, so I just grabbed it.
You know what? That's a decent price for
it was retro, and it was I used to play it at uni, and it kind of had a little bit of a soft spot because I quite like being the police and sort of smashing people up. But
it's so weird that you say it's retro and you used to play it at uni, because I remember selling that game when I worked at the video game store, so now I just feel old.
I'm 36.
So
I've been watching somebody else play Stray. I can't get my boyfriend off from playing Stray. That sounded slightly weird. I
also played Stray. What did you think?
Couples counselling for another day. Look, the opening part of it was one of the saddest moments in video game history, where poor kitty cat fell down and had a limp.
It was so sad.
So sad. And almost immediately, our new kitten, 4 months old, was up on the TV stand, pawing at the screen, watching the cats play. Then took a fantastic photo of her in action that was then put on Twitter and was then kind of cribbed by someone as a featured image for some digital magazine somewhere. So she's an influencer already at age 4. What else have I been doing? I don't know what else I've been doing. I haven't been playing many games because, life, busy, etc. We've got exciting news coming out in a couple of days' time about our very exciting gaming live that's happening in September. So there's 3 days of back-to-back planning for that. That's been really busy. I'm probably going to stop about there.
Okay. Well, I also
that's my
Stray.
random catch up of warbling.
A lot of what I've been doing is being sick and doing taxes, so we won't talk about that because
we don't need that. No, not again.
It was like getting back from TwitchCon, getting my taxes sorted before the cutoff date, and then being like, "Oh, now I'm sick." That might have had something to do with that, actually, like going around the clock and working on tax stuff. Now that I'm thinking about it, but besides that, I actually played like some games. I did some games. I played Stray. That was fun. Very much felt like an early 2000s PC game, like I guess I could probably relate it to something like American McGee's like Alice in Wonderland game, in terms of like how it controls and how it feels with the environments. It just felt like a very early to mid 2000s kind of platformer.
It's not the sharpest.
No.
But I think for what it is,
I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way.
Not at all, pardon me. I love the fact people are modding it already.
Yes.
You can there's an artist out in the world that you can commission to have your cat modded into Stray.
So
that's amazing.
That is fantastic. But I'll raise you one better. Somebody modded in Spyro the Dragon.
Yes.
I saw that one.
And it's so apt. Like the animations are so good for it, because like it's just taking like cat animations, but since they already modeled a lot of Spyro's movements on cats and other, by not bipedal. What is it? You've got
Quadruped.
4 quadruped animals. Like it fits
I know
so
science.
well. Yeah, I don't. You can tell. Just me being my airhead self.
I love with the game. You can just go around sort of like just generally fucking shit up.
Just
with
being a
Yes.
havoc to robots. It's just you're a chaos gremlin. It's great.
literally
Yeah, I could be the asshole cat that my cat is. It's great.
buttons just to
Absolutely. Now I know
jump
how it
up
feels.
and knock stuff off shelves and knock paint cans off. It's just delightful.
I like how like some elements of that did work into gameplay, like with certain like little puzzles and unlocks and things, but I felt like it was a really weird experience because I can't remember who I was talking to you about this, but it would like go through stages of just being like super easy and casual. Then all of a sudden you'd have like a chase sequence or a stealth section. It'd be like the difficulty would just ramp up to like 100 straight away. So it's like in terms of the experience of the game, I really did enjoy it. I completed it. I only missed a couple of those damn music. I think I missed like one music sheet somewhere, but I got everything else in the game, and it was really enjoyable experience. So I absolutely loved the game, and I want to see more like that in the future. It's like kind of gave me that wave of nostalgia from like those old kind of games I've been playing. So I also played Escape Simulator.
Oh.
Did you know what Escape Simulator is?
I assume it's a simulator of escape rooms.
It is a simulator of escape rooms. It's like little tiny puzzle rooms you can play cooperatively. So me and some friendos got together, and I proved that I have the biggest brain in the room at all times. I'm dumb, but you know, when it comes to escape rooms, I love like puzzles. I absolutely like love doing like little puzzle things and stuff. So when it comes to like logic puzzles in escape rooms, usually I click on quite quickly. I'm like, okay, so that's for that, and that goes there, and this is how that works. Like you see, because they're themed in this particular game, Escape Room. There's different areas. There's one like themed around a space station. There's one themed around like an old mansion, like a family mansion. There's one themed around like Egypt, and so instantly I'll load into a level, I'll see some clear pyramids with some like golden globules inside. I'm like, well, clearly you have to count the globules, and that's exactly what you have to do, at least to like no, you're not going to remember this anyway if you do play it. But it's like numbers are for a combination
I'll
that
be
are
sat
like
there
right
going,
next to it.
Damn you, Mia.
Now you know the solution. Yes, but absolutely, I love doing escape rooms. I've only ever done one in real life, but it's really nice to have that cooperative kind of like, we're all kind of like doing our own thing, but then we're trying to solve it at the same time. And you can like pick up things and study them and look at them. But the nice thing about the game too is that the other people in the game can also look at the thing that you're looking at and study it at the same time. So it's not like you're
hogging it.
Yeah, you're not necessarily hogging it. They can't like take it off you or take it anywhere, but they can at least look at the same information. So everybody's got the same information.
That's cute.
I did notice that though we'd all kind of go off and do our own things. So there'd be puzzles that are being solved over on the other side of the room that I kind of felt like FOMO for, because like I was doing this one and solving it, and then by the time I'd gotten back, that one was solved. I was like, I didn't even interact with this puzzle. I don't know what it was about, and now I'm sad about that.
I guess that's the flip side of letting people play with all the puzzles simultaneously. Is it kind of creates that you can just rush off and do that. So it was a fully kind of realized game. So obviously I'm guessing the stylings of it, and it would look very cool, and the aesthetic was really cool. I'm guessing like
it's very like cartoony. So I'm assuming like the budget wasn't like the highest budget in the world. So I imagine it was an indie game. I'm pretty sure it was anyway, from like an indie studio.
I haven't done that many escape rooms. I've done 2, and
I've done 1.
Yeah,
I've done a lot. I love escape rooms. It's like every time I have like an anniversary or like something with my husband, we do an escape room because.
Oh yeah, I did one right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and I was like, well, I'm not doing this for a while.
Apologies in advance because I'm going to slate them. But no, not all of them. I think the problem is that it has to be really, really, really good to kind of immerse me into it. Because if it's kind of, if I have to, and this is possibly where me and Tabletop, it's a work in progress. But it's kind of like, if it's like, look at this expensive box of things, like it's a shoebox, and it's kind of like I'm just looking at it going, it's a shoebox. It just I just
You
kind of
need to use your
lose that.
imagination.
Yeah,
I guess,
you
yeah.
see,
Like
it just
budget-wise,
sucks me out of that sort of space, and I'm just kind of looking at it, going, "I'm really bored now."
so the one that I did in Birmingham, it was really like cheap looking, and like for me, it was less about like the escapism because it was like something about stopping a demon from being resurrected. It was more about here are the puzzles, do the puzzles, and like I'll get really excited about puzzles just in general. This is
So we
something I've
did.
never talked about on the podcast before.
We did one in Birmingham actually just before I think it was just before the lockdown as well, because it was kind of it was all a bit novel of like, we have to wash our hands, isn't this hilarious? And we were sort of
Wacky.
exactly. It was the NEC, it was the Doctor Who one, and it was for
Yeah,
gaming.
I remember you doing that.
We got invited
I
out
wanted
there
to
to go
go
and
to
do
it.
it. With I think it's
I
Matt
didn't
and
get an
I
invite.
went. You didn't get an invite.
Didn't invite me.
Neither did I, so you know.
I don't think I knew you then.
But still, I didn't get an invite.
But it was it called Adventures in Time or something like that anyway. But that was really good in the sense that it was well styled, but
good production quality.
The production
from
quality
the
is
BBC.
excellent. Yeah. But the puzzles,
they got the money.
The puzzles were a little bit dry. A few of them were good. A few of them, what I was expecting was like connecting leads and plugging shit in and that sort of stuff. But then one of them was like, oh, you had to here's a drawer with loads of different specimens of stuff. I can't remember what it was. You literally had to put them in something, and it was just like, there's someone sat on the other side of this with a button, isn't there? And this is the problem. The second my brain starts to kind of like see and peek behind the curtain, my sort of like my attention was that, oh no, I'm just stood in a room at the NEC not doing anything productive with my life. And it's that kind of like, I just sort of lose that.
You must be incredibly fun to have at parties. I tell you what, come on.
I was like, oh, I was to an adventure game. Yeah.
I was.
This is Coventry.
Yeah. Well. I horrendously interested up until the point that it just sort of the puzzles started to get a little bit weird. I think we were overthinking things as well. Like there was massive.
Yeah, that does happen.
The Gallifreyan text on the walls and all this sort of stuff. And in the end, it turned out to be you just had to put your hand in a hole or something.
You start looking at like everything in the room, like this random block in the corner. Like, what is this? Got to have something to do with something.
It means something.
There was like because of the lights and everything else on the floor, there was kind of like these panels on the floor that we hadn't seen light up by that point. And there's us jumping up and down like idiots on these panels. And the people on they must have been watching us on the CCTV going, what on earth are they doing?
Yeah.
Anyway,
pretty much. That usually happens.
But the idea of a video game escape room actually interests me, because I think I'd get I'd get connected better with that. Yeah,
I mean, like, I think you can play that one in VR as well. So that would definitely like immerse you a lot more in that particular game. And the fact that you can play it co-op too, really, really fun. I heavily enjoyed it. What I really not liked, because I was doing it with some other people, once they had to go, I was like, well, I don't want to do any more of the official levels. They had like a Steam community created level thing, which is really cool, because now you have literally like endless stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I played one which is like board game themed, going back to the tabletop theme. And it was like 12 of the best creators on the platform had like come together to collab on doing like 12 different rooms. Some of them were amazing. Other ones I wanted to pull my hair out because it was so obtuse. Just in general. There was a Catan room though. There's a Settlers of Catan room. And I thought, this is so easy because I know the rules of Catan. That one of the people who worked on it actually came to the stream and talked to me while I was doing it. I was like, yeah, I love the Catan room. That was amazing. And they were like, yeah, it's funny because like, if you play Catan, that room's easy. If you have never played Catan, you have no idea what to do in that room. Like the logic just goes out the window because they don't really like explain the actual rules of the board game. Also, there's like a snakes and ladders one where you had like dice rolls on the bottom and you had to align the numbers on the dice to get to the end point in the perfect amount of moves while also utilizing the snakes and ladders, which you could click on the board and then turn between snakes and ladders. So that took me like a good 40 minutes to actually figure out that, probably working backwards is the better idea here. And they definitely want you to go up and down at some point. Anyway, amazing experience.
My brain's just gone off on what other board games you could do escape rooms for. Operation.
There was an Operation one actually. I had to like remove stuff from the body without setting off the alarm and thing. And then I had to like put it on a board and do maths. A lot of the stuff that in that particular escape room was a bunch of maths. I didn't like that. That was awful.
Ticket to
And
Ride. If you suffer
Ticket
from
to Ride?
insomnia.
That'd be pretty cool. Well, I mean, you can see the thing. Okay, so me and Robin
I hate Ticket to Ride.
really.
With a
Oh,
passion.
I've never played it. I tried to play it with Robin at a board game night. Funnily enough, I tried to at a board game night, and I think we got about 2 turns in before we realized that nobody really understood
Nobody
the rules.
actually knew what was happening. There were 6 of us sat around this table. And in typical board game style that kind of frustrates me, it took longer to set up and explain the rules to everyone. And it was kind of like we're 45 minutes in and nobody's rolled a dice yet, metaphorically. And it was kind of like, can we just get on with this? And then 2 goes around with everyone arguing with each other. It's like no one actually knows what we're doing. So we just threw it in the bin.
Yeah, I remember us playing Uno a bunch of times instead. That was
we went to Uno and
Uno's great for everyone.
Cards
Against Humanity. Yeah, that's that.
That's what our tabletop boiled down to.
Yeah, but that wasn't in the weekly recap. That was in the months and months ago recap. So months ago. To move on from an escape simulator, though, absolutely fantastic. Go play it. It's fun. Yep. I had my 6-year stream anniversary last week. So Thursday marked 6 years on stream. I did a little Japanese puzzle that I bought, like in an IRL stream the day before. I opened a bunch of Pokemon cards because I hate myself, and it's tax deductible if I do it on stream. And then we played Hollow Knight, so it was a fun day. Other than that, I've been watching a lot of movies because while I was doing my taxes, I was just trying to keep myself occupied. So, like I watched the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Those were fun. I just tried to block out the whole Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation out of my mind. I hadn't seen the last 2, so I'd seen the first trilogy, and then the last 2 I was just like,
I don't remember the last 2. I know I'd watched them, but I don't remember them. So
they have Orlando Bloom in them, so I just didn't really care.
He was in the last one.
Was he? For like 2 seconds. He was like at the very start and the very end of the last one. But they're very by the book. You need to have Johnny Depp. You need to have love interest. You need to have the young couple that's in love in every single film for some reason. In this one, it's a church guy and a mermaid for some reason. I was
going to say, it's the hunky missionary.
Yeah, the hunky missionary who gets dragged down into water and never seen again. Spoilers.
That's a shame, I guess.
Which is like they didn't explain. There's some plot threads that don't get explained in there. Yeah,
I don't know. He's just underwater, ministering to fish or something.
Yeah, living his best fish life.
Yeah, exactly. I watched a bunch more of the Orville. I'm telling you, I know you don't necessarily think it's the most amazing thing in the world, but as somebody who's not like a massive Star Trek fan, who was like grown up visiting her dad every now and then watching Star Trek when I'm there, completely out of order and like every now and then. The Orville was fun. It was like a less serious version. It was the closest to say like Lower Decks. Let's say that. I think I've said that before, but like,
look, I've always said I don't have a problem with the Orville. The problem I had with the Orville is it can't make its mind up what it is. Like the day it was announced that Seth MacFarlane was going to do a Star Trek-esque thing, I was like, I am here for it. It's satire. It's Galaxy Quest all over again, but in TV format. I am there with my seat pulled up. The problem is they go from kind of like they try to do real sci-fi. It is. They try to do real sci-fi, then drop a fart joke or
they'll make a bunch of like references too. You know,
they're trying to figure out what a black hole is, and then while making a joke about Fanta or something about it, just I don't understand what's happening.
Can I tell you something that really got me? So I watched an episode which was about them opening a time capsule from like the 21st century. I think it was like from 2015. And one of the characters uses the information that they find on an iPhone to like recreate this person's life.
Yeah.
And they're saying, yeah, this is a really like unique look inside like of a person's life and stuff. And they're acting like all this stuff out of the time capsule. They don't know what it is. But every other episode, they're making references to like songs that came out in like the 21st century or the end of the 20th century. And it's like, there's that massive disconnect there because you make all these references to stuff that's popular like at the time or a few years ago, and you don't know what an iPhone is when it comes out of a time capsule.
I think it's like they've got two different writing teams. You've got the sci-fi writing team that tries to write a good sci-fi story, and then you've got the joke team that comes in and just kind of tears some of that up and inserts a load of random jokes. It doesn't seem like the two are ever joining together. And I think that has been always in my issue with that. Is that I want to like it, I really do, but then I'm sort of like going, I don't know what's happening here. And now it's been sullied a little bit because the I don't want woke in Star Trek sort of mafia that's out there at the moment, because they were threatened by a female lead.
You mean they don't the I don't want woke in anything. Mafia. Yeah.
They sort of declare that the Orville is the best new Star Trek, and it's like it really isn't, and you idiots, because it's obviously got a white man in charge of it rather than.
They actually have a whole storyline in that which talks about like there's like a whole transgender race thing, and there's like misogyny and like a misogynistic race too, and like how that's like wrong and like. It's really weird that the woke crowd is like picking and choosing and not realizing that it's very similar. Regardless, it's
so unlike them.
I know,
right?
Normally their arguments are well thought through.
Yeah, a lack of logic with the anti-woke crowd. That's odd. I don't know.
I can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, so I will say though, I got really upset at that particular episode where he recreates this person's life and then gets heavily involved in it. Cause like they were talking about finality of in certain episodes, like the finality of like death and like non-existence and stuff. And it was like really getting to me emotionally in different areas. And this last one was super interesting that I watched. It was like a completely mind F episode where they were going through like different scenarios that they thought were hallucinations. They didn't really know what was real. And I was like, I love this stuff. It's kind of like a mystery, and it didn't really deliver at the end, unfortunately. It was kind of like a bit crappy, but that kind of like structure where you're not really sure what's going on. Oh, now they're in a high school in the 21st century. Now they're on like an alien planet in an alien morgue for some reason. Now they're trying to cross a lake, and this giant sea monster is dragging them down below. Like lots of different settings, and you don't quite know what's going on. There's a mystery to be solved. That's really interesting to me. Those kind of stories like really, really get me.
That's the problem though. They can if they put their mind to it, they could do really good sci-fi, and then they go and ruin it with an ill-timed joke that doesn't make contextual sense, and it's just because it's like they forgot that they're a comedy, and it's like, oh god, we've got to crack a joke.
To be fair, there are some episodes that just slog on and on and on as well. And anytime I look at Seth MacFarlane as a captain, I'm just like, I mean, you're in the main lead role because you produce this show. Like,
he wouldn't be let anywhere near a captain.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense, really. But yeah, so I've been enjoying that. Plus, I finally watched Lightyear because I put it on to Disney Plus because I still have my Disney Plus subscription till the end of the year. And that was fun. It doesn't make any sense for Andy's toy to be based on that movie, but it was fun. Yeah, that's about it. And like, there's a lesbian couple
for about 2 seconds.
For about 2 seconds, yeah.
Classic Disney.
And I remember like everybody got riled up over it as well. It's like, that's just terrible. And
I missed it.
It was nothing again.
I was just like, I watched it, and then I heard there was a gay kiss, and I was like,
was there? Because I can't remember seeing it.
I had to go back and watch it. It's like, oh yeah.
Was it literally like he looks at them through the door and they have a little kiss?
Yeah, he opens the door, and as he opens, like creaks through, quick kiss, and that's it. It's like, okay.
Wow. I'm greeting you as you come home from work. A quick peck on the cheek. That's outrage. Outrage. That's crazy. That's. But yeah, that was a fun film. Socks was the best character, the little robotic kitty. He was the best. And then other than that, that's been what I've been up to. Jack, what have you been up to?
I've also been doing taxes.
Taxes.
Yes, it's been fun. I've been treating it like a game which I've been hiding from quite a lot. I've also finally got around to playing and finishing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ooh.
Which that was a game I played It will, I think in total to me about 50 hours to complete, and only the last 10 hours was fun. Which, yeah, there's one I had friends saying it's like the best game of all time, and I really like Red Dead Redemption 1. So I was just waiting for it to become fun, and it kind of just never really did, and it let me down a lot because it's like, also knowing like all the time crunch stuff, what happened with it, I'm like, was it worth it?
Does that game have a lot of crunch? I completely missed Red Dead. It was Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Yeah. So I completely missed that game. I own it. I think I bought it in like a Steam sale at one point, and I've never played it. But how is that? How is the experience in general? Like, is it mechanically? Is it fun? Because I remember a lot of people were raving about it when it came out.
Yeah, that's why I was looking forward to it. The problem is, it's like they're kind of like the action fighty bits, the shooting, really fun. But between the shooting sections is about 20 minutes of horse riding.
Yes,
like,
that's like, the issue. I think you're right. It's typical. It is typical Rockstar missions of fetch carry sort of thing. And
at least with like Grand Theft Auto, you have the radio to keep you entertained.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Because it's
the wildness is empty. It's just
because I think, but it's massive. That's the problem. The map is massive, and a horse only goes so fast. And so you kind of have to get a bit more strategic about how you do certain missions. You can pick stuff up. You don't have to act on it until you might be in that area next.
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit more kind of a bit like that. I love it. I think I'm on my third playthrough.
Really?
Yeah. And I keep trying to be bad, but I can't help it. I like being good.
Turns out I was accidentally bad because you get bad karma when you shoot a horse in the head. And that was my favorite thing to do was when I was racing was just
your favorite thing to do is shoot horses
and just watch the person ragdoll.
Oh, someone else's horse, not your horse.
Yeah, not my horse. I tried to. You used to do in Red Dead Redemption 1, but you can't do it.
Yeah, you can't. No, you can't. You can punch your horse.
You can.
I did by accidents. And yes, exactly, because the same annoyingly the same button to check what's in your saddlebag is the same button that punches, and if you miss time where you push it, you end up smacking the horse.
Yeah, that was the bits that I enjoyed.
Okay,
I think I did see some like interesting stuff with Red Dead Redemption 2 though, is like certain missions have different outcomes depending on what you do too, even if it's like the little interactions that you have. I think it was like one video where you come across these guys who are like in a chain gang, and they're just like doing the chain gang thing, and you can either choose to like they try and escape, and you can either choose to like help the people who have them captive, or you can choose to help the people that are in the chain gang, or you can just like murder everyone. There's a lot of choices there. I was really surprised by that. And did you notice? Did you go back and play it multiple times, or did you just have the one playthrough?
I did it once. I'm not going back anytime soon.
Okay, cool.
I deliberately kind of went back through and kind of re-engineered some of the bits that I didn't do properly last time, or maybe chose different paths and stuff. And it is interesting, and it is that kind of it's typical. It is typical kind of like GTA, in a sense that you can get really embedded in that world.
I can see that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is that all you've been up to, Jack? Like mostly taxes and Red Dead Redemption 2?
Taxes and Red Dead Redemption, yep.
Funnily enough, we've had a wonderful person show up a little earlier than planned backstage. So I think what we're going to do is not to keep them waiting. We're going to bring them on right now. We are joined today. Welcome our second guest, the lead designer of the D&D Player's Handbook, the master of dungeons, its game architect, Jeremy Crawford. Hello.
Hello there. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy.
How are you doing today? You having a good day so far?
Yeah, doing wonderfully, and I'm delighted to be here.
Welcome back.
Oh yes. Yeah, welcome back. It's been a while since you were last on the podcast, like almost probably a year, in fact. Like, what have you been up to since then? Like, probably a lot. That's
How's
a lot
your year
condensed
been?
down. How's your year been? Yeah.
Just to summarize a year, it's easy.
So I feel like ever since the lockdown began for COVID, I've largely become this sort of hermit scholar who is mostly at home, just working on Dungeons and Dragons. It's actually a great life, and recently been venturing into the office a bit, so I'm getting to see some of our other team members as we plan what's in store for D&D in the next 5 to 10 years.
Honestly, that sounds pretty amazing. Is that an airplane?
Is that plane?
Are you invading anywhere at the moment, Jeremy? Or?
Yes, I just sent my fighter jets out.
Oh no!
Go forth and conquer. No,
It's to advertise the podcast. It's literally just skywriting across the Gaming Mag podcast. Thank you for doing that for us, by the way. That's very, very kind of you. Now we're gonna. Sorry.
So this weekend in Seattle is an annual event called Seafair, and fighter jets fly over the city for the whole weekend. So we might hear them several more times during this podcast.
I'm prepared for that. That sounds amazing.
How atmospheric.
Yes, I feel like I'm actually there. Right, we're gonna deep dive straight into your interview, and I believe Robin, you have the first question.
Yes, obviously we spoke last time quite at length and in lovely ways about how D&D and the LGBT community have been kind of hand in glove for an awful long time. So I think obviously the trailer for the movie dropped at SDCC. So Dungeons and Dragons keeps on growing in popularity, particularly with the queer community. Why do you think that is?
I think going back to my experience of D&D way back when I was 6 or 7 years old, and a wee queer kid myself, I think D&D has always attracted members of the LGBT plus family, partly because it's a game where we get to explore who we are. We get to try on different identities. Something that we as queer people sometimes...
There's that jet again. Sorry.
Yeah.
You were saying...
Yes. Sometimes members of our communities are forced for survival reasons in real life to try on other identities. D&D gives us a place where we can safely do that in a context of fun, and also actually sometimes, particularly when we're younger, play at being who we actually are in real life, actually explore having a same-sex romance or having a gender identity that defies other people's expectations, and so on and so forth. It becomes a space where we can do these explorations. And so there are a lot of stories of people coming out for the first time to their D&D group because it's the place where they felt safe to explore different aspects of themselves. I honestly think this aspect of D&D is part of its charm for everybody, whether they're queer or not. But I think because as queer people, who we are is often so problematized in certain cultures and different, and even if a culture is largely accepting, there will sometimes be communities in that culture that are not, that a place where we can safely explore identity is very powerful.
Definitely, yeah. I remember, like, for me, because I didn't really have like TTRPG growing up, as a trans person, it was always like video games for me. Like anything with character creation, I would just be right in, just create the ideal version of the self in that setting. And it's so nice that like D&D and other TTRPG games like offer this space for people just to experiment with identity and just be who they want to be, even if they're in a situation like I was where it wouldn't necessarily be safe for them. So I know that Wizards has been working more with marginalized groups and creators within the communities. That's something we love to see, obviously. So how do you feel that these relationships have impacted Dungeons and Dragons and, by proxy, Wizards of Coast for the better?
I think whenever we open our doors wider and bring more storytellers to the table, I think the game gets better. I think the community becomes richer. I think then more people who maybe weren't sure if this game was for them then see it is for them. To me, there's this sort of multiplying positive effect where the more people who feel safe to come to the D&D table or a similar games table, the better that game becomes, as people realize that, particularly in a medium that's about people weaving stories together, just how much richer those stories become when you have all of these different inputs of people bringing very different life experience. They're bringing, their home culture with them, and that influences how they interact with the fantasy world. And so then the fantasy world itself becomes more interesting. It really is sort of this treasure trove of, the more, I think, not only the game opens itself up to different people's stories, but we also as people, I think, become richer when we open ourselves up to other people's experiences, other people's perspectives. And we not only realize how varied human experience can be, but then we also see how connected we all are, that no matter how different we all are, there are all these common threads, these things we have in common that tie us together. And I think that's always, whenever we have those epiphanies of, wow, the two of us are very different from each other, yet we have these like foundational experiences that are the same. That's really powerful.
I think we need some more of that in the world at the moment.
Definitely.
When you
There's
said about
a hell of a lot for normalization, which I think
absolutely, and I think as well, agreed differences. Like, I think we can agree to have differences so long as there's that commonality in the middle. And I think that's that second half of that sentence, is that people have forgotten that we do have a lot in common than which divides us. So as the lead architect, the lead game designer of D&D, could you explain a little more on how future LGBTQ creators, people like Jack, for example, here, can include queerness within their games?
So I encourage game designers, game masters, wherever you are on the creative spectrum, whether you're running tabletop games for people, or you're creating content and sharing it with people online, or you're working as a professional designer, to boldly include queer stories and queer characters. I say this because often the people who flinch most away from including queer content are queer creators, because so often we've internalized, and it goes all the way back to our own childhoods, that we're supposed to take a step back, that we're supposed to, be in the wings while the straight people have their story, and we're essentially support characters. We're the NPCs on the stage of life. And I think we, as queer creators, often need to push ourselves to include queer stories. And part of that is a kindness we do to ourselves, where we look at ourselves and realize we belong here too. We belong on the stage as well. And the human story doesn't exist without us. Sometimes we internalize this sort of poisonous narrative that we're sort of an appendage, that, gay and trans folks, we're the NPCs over there. No, we're also protagonists in the grand story of life. And our characters in our games can take center stage, can play pivotal roles, can be heroes and also villains in just the way that straight and cis characters can be. And so I think often what we need to be doing is just give ourselves permission to include ourselves, and to do so matter-of-factly. I often like to talk about the fact that we don't need to make a grand announcement when we include queer stories, because in a way we actually sometimes other ourselves by treating our own stories as needing an explanation, or there needing to be a special frame around it to warn people you are about to enter queer content, when we are a natural part of our own world, and we can be a natural part of the stories that we're in, as matter-of-factly present as straight characters are in the story. And I think that takes practice. It's one reason why I encourage including queer stories so much, because the more practiced we get at doing it, the more matter-of-fact the inclusion of queer characters becomes. And so then it just becomes what everyone expects, because just like the real world doesn't exist without us. I would love for us culturally to get to the point where people will notice our absence in a story, rather than, I feel like we're still in a place where people comment on our presence. And I want us to push and push and push. So it's, if we're not there, the general public would be, this story feels inauthentic because there are no queer characters in it.
Definitely. I think like the problem there obviously is like we've been excluded from a lot of like mainstream narratives for so long that just causes like so many difficulties moving forward, and it does become like just any inclusion of queer people essentially becomes, oh, you're trying to push some form of narrative, you're trying to like push something like down our throat, where it's just, no, we just want like a place at the table. That's essentially all it is. Now, of course, we also have the wonderful Jack Dixon here, who is the creator behind the award-winning Adventuring with Pride supplemental series. I believe, Jack, you have a question too?
Yes. Hi, Jamie. I'm a big fan, so I'm slightly nervous to talk to you. My question I have, ever since doing sort of tabletop games in D&D professionally, is that I spend so much of my time writing and play testing D&D. I never really have time for myself to actually play D&D anymore. I was like, how do you manage to balance doing the two? Like, do you still get to play D&D like casually as a player, or is it always like play testing and mechanics for you?
So what I have done over the years is I have made sure to have a home game, either that I'm running or that I'm playing in, that has nothing to do with anything I'm working on. And so that game usually has a few rules. And here I'm not talking about game rules, which I work on all the time, but really sort of table rules. One of those is, in my home games, we never include playtest content, because I want to make it so that when I'm having fun, I'm just being a fan of the game I work on. I don't want my work brain to engage when I'm just trying to play the elf barbarian that I'm playing. So that's one, is I try to make it that nothing I'm playtesting, nothing I'm working on is present in the home game. And then also I just make sure that the home games I'm in are filled with people I know I can actually relax with, I can, tell silly jokes with, and we can enjoy snacks and drinks together, and make sure that I protect the sort of the experience that so many of us enjoy in the first place, part of why we're passionate about the game that we work on. And now, that all said, it takes some work, because sometimes when I'm super busy and I've been working on D&D all week, sometimes the idea of then spending my off hours playing the game I work on all the time, I have to push myself sometimes, but I'm always glad when I do, because getting back into those shoes of just being a person who loves this game helps keep my fire alive as a fan of the game, so that I never lose sight of, not only is this game wonderful to work on, but it's just something I've been a fan of my entire life.
Like, I can see that's probably like important for you, differentiating and like compartmentalizing the two, so there's not a crazy amount of crossover. I've heard you also have your own like homebrew, like environments and settings and stuff too. Is that I'm assuming that's also very helpful for just like differing those experiences for you.
Yeah, so I have been using my homebrew settings since my senior year in high school, and so part of it is I use it because it's actually easier for me to use this thing I made myself than to study something that someone else made.
Yeah.
But the other benefit that it's had for me ever since I started working on D&D full time over 15 years ago is it means in my home game, not even the setting has anything directly to do with things we're working on. Although we have undermined that a little bit, because my home group includes several of my colleagues, and we have over the years imported some things from my home campaign into our
the
books.
official stuff. Hell yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But it's still mostly, it mostly still feels like just our thing at home.
I'm gonna wait for the
Jet to
next
go
jet
past.
to pass. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So so moving forward and looking into the future, what are your hopes for the future of like queerness in TTRPGs in general? I know you briefly mentioned obviously like having more narrative experiences where we're essentially like normalizing the inclusion of queer characters. Is that generally something that you think is the main aspect of the future of queerness, or is there anything specific that you would want to see included in TTRPGs?
So for me, it's two-pronged. On one hand, I want us, not only in D&D, but in other tabletop games, to continue to see queer NPCs for the player characters to meet. But in some ways, I think even more importantly, I want players to feel comfortable to play queer characters, because there's only so far we can go with queer NPCs because they're not the focus of a tabletop role-playing game. It's the player characters who are the main characters. And so I would really love to see an even greater normalization of people playing queer characters, because we now in our D&D books, in any of our major adventures, and this has been true for years, there are queer characters in the books. But again, for it really to feel like the queer characters are taking center stage, it needs to be the player characters. And so again, that's why I see that as sort of the main growth area, is people really feeling comfortable, feeling safe in the groups that they're in, to play a queer hero or a queer anti-hero. Whatever it is their bliss in the particular story that they're helping create. Have those characters take center stage.
That sounds like an amazing future where there are just players sitting at a table and like, you have the typical high school like bro, and like he's not afraid of like any kind of like internalized homophobia or anything like that, just to like be a gay character for a day. That sounds like an amazing future, and maybe eventually we will get there. So that would be wonderful to see more of, honestly.
Yeah.
And talking of having the sort of celebrating queer characters in games, be they NPCs or player characters, looking at it the other way around, what advice would you have for queer people that are new to the tabletop world? How do they sort of particularly look after themselves, protect themselves maybe, but also jump in with both feet?
So I think there are several levels to that. One, if you've never played and you just want to try the game out, then I recommend trying it out as quickly as you can, but know going into it that in your sort of first tutorial experience, where you're just learning how does this game work, and what's possible for what can a character do, how do you interact with the dungeon master, that kind of thing. I think it's important to give yourself the liberty for that to truly just be a tutorial experience. And then once you have sort of under your feet the sense of how this game works, then really look for a group of players where you feel comfortable, safe to be yourself, because that's when you can really start digging into the types of characters you want to play. I think people need to know that you don't have to stay in a group, and really shouldn't stay in a group where you don't feel supported, where you don't feel safe, and to keep looking until you find the group of people where you do feel that way, where you can truly relax, have fun, play the character that you want to play, whether the character is queer or not, and not ever feel trapped that playing the game means you have to be with a group of people that you don't feel safe around, because I think that's ultimately more important than the enjoyment of the game, is making sure you feel comfortable, you feel supported. And there are online resources, people looking for groups in different cities of the world. Also, there are online groups. So if there aren't enough people locally that you can play with, you can often find a nurturing group online to play with. And so really, I just recommend people keep looking until they find the group that feels right, and not to feel pressure to stay someplace that doesn't feel right. Because at the end of the day, it should be a good time. It should be a place where you feel like you can really dig into the story and not feel like you're kind of constantly looking over your shoulder to see if you're going to be, judged or put down because of the type of character you want to portray.
Definitely. I think like adding on to that as well, like a lot of people coming into D&D might think, there is a rigid set of rules or I have to do it X, Y, and Z way. And like some people might not realize like every DM is going to do the game differently. Every experience with that group of players is going to be different. Some might focus more on role playing, some might be more rules focused, and it's really down to, again, like you say, just don't feel like you have to be trapped. Just keep moving and find the group that fits you and that accepts you for who you are.
Yeah, and I love that you call out the fact that each DM's expression of D&D is unique. Each DM brings a different alchemy, a different balance of rules use, storytelling, role playing. Some DMs tell very serious stories. Other DMs tell very jokey stories. Sometimes it's something in between. And yeah, people should also keep shopping in a way until it's a good match between them and the DM and the other players.
Yeah, exactly. Jeremy, that's such a great place to leave that. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know you're extremely busy, so thank you so much for making that time. Appreciate it.
It's a delight to be here with you.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're going to say goodbye to you now, but have a wonderful rest of your day. Go see some jets, I guess, if you've got the time.
Yes.
And
When you have the chance, you have to.
Exactly, yeah. And we might see you in about another year's time for the next
year.
tabletop special. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Bye for now, Jeremy.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeremy.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a wonderful, wonderful person.
I adore the fact that D&D is in such safe queer hands.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
has been for a very long time. And that's
Mhm.
what I think people find quite interesting as well, is that this isn't a new thing. And I think people that if anybody riles against the kind of like the newness of like, oh, it's they've gone woke or something, it's like, nope, 15, 20 years. From
It's always been this way.
Almost
Yeah,
day
you've just
one.
not been paying attention. That's the main thing. Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to the news section, a little section we like to call bite-sized news, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's where we go over everything gaming in the news recently. So you have a news story for us.
I do.
Marvin,
And of
don't
course,
you?
if you like your left turns with horror games, then imagine a dating simulator with the world's most popular horror game. So yeah, Hooked on You released this week. And that's about as far as I've got with that piece of news. I haven't played it.
It's released. I've not played it either.
Segment. Nobody's
I
played
know
it, but
Amy really enjoyed it, right?
Yes,
So Amy actually did the review for it.
We did do a great review on gaming. I've seen loads of creators play it on stream as well. It looks insane, and I'm there for it. And I'm always there for people that take massive left turns. I think it's one of the most creative things you can do is not do the same thing again. Like if you've built a brand up, then get into something else. Like Peugeot, who makes cars, just back in the 1800s, decided one day they were bored of making cars. They made pepper grinders.
I did not know
they
that.
were excellent pepper grinders. But that's the kind of left turn that I like in business.
Gotta find yourself a Peugeot pepper grinder. Let's go, baby.
Just wake up one day and then
grinders.
suddenly decide to do something else.
I will say I had no idea that this game, and this makes total sense, is actually by PsyOp, who also worked on the KFC dating game I Love You, Colonel Sanders. But now I'm looking at the artwork. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, this looks great. I intend to play it and give you my feedback before next week. But Amy, our resident editorial reviewer over on the Gaming Mag, absolutely loved it from the looks of it. They took some issue with the mini games, I guess.
Yeah, there's some design choices and some mini game issues.
Well, it's skill checks, isn't it? Like, and this is what Amy said as well. Like, it makes sense in the context of that game with Dead by Daylight, because Dead by Daylight has skill checks in there as one of its main mechanics outside of just running around. So it makes sense for it to be included in that game. But I'll tell you what, we'll give this a go, and I guess maybe we'll do it in, maybe not by the next podcast, but one of the podcasts we'll put it in the weekly recap. Robin
chuck it-
might not even be
we'll
on that
chuck it in
podcast, so
somewhere.
it's just going to be down to me to do
Hopefully
it. I've just realized that. Wow. Okay.
You're giving
You know
yourself
what?
homework.
I have
Yeah.
given myself homework. I love it. Anyway, so moving on. So that hopefully everybody seems to be loving it. It's great. Hooked on You. Go and check that out. Last Wednesday, there was a Pokemon Presents presentation. Pokemon Presents present. Yeah, that makes sense. And Nintendo held a presentation to give updates about all things Pokemon. We had information on Pokemon esports. We've got the Pokemon World Championships coming up. I believe that's on the 18th. I tried to get tickets. They're all sold out for spectators. It's really annoying because they have a really cute like beef eater Pikachu that you can only get at the event. And it's really annoying as well because I have the only other British Pikachu that has
You
been
got
released.
one. I hate
Yeah,
you.
that was
I tried so hard. So
back in
hard.
2018. Went to the Pokemon Center in London. We had to queue up from
I was
like
about to, how long did you queue for?
okay, so we got there around 9:00 at the night before.
Oh
And
god.
essentially just camped out all night in the queue placement. We weren't even the first people there. That's the thing. I think we were
I don't
probably
doubt that.
about like 15 into the queue. And that's probably the only reason we got it because like people who were turning up like on the morning or later in the day, once they gotten through the queue, you couldn't get one. I don't know. It's like, what was your experience, Jack?
So I was kind of foolishly like, oh, I'll just show up and just go into the store and get one. It'd be easy.
They won't sell out.
No, it won't.
It's
And
unfortunate.
I
You're
walked
also
up, saw
sorry,
the
go ahead.
queue. Yeah, I saw the queue and I followed the queue and I followed the queue and I continued to follow the queue.
Oh, the queue.
And then at the very end, they're like, it's about a 6-hour wait. And the store closes. So the guy at the very end said, you're probably not going to come back tomorrow at like in the like early like 6 o'clock in the morning and you might get one. I was like,
I don't know
I
about
really want that
yeah.
Pikachu though. I really want it.
I at the time I made it content. So the really sad thing about that, and again, this is like year back recap, that there are people like selling these ones online. There are scalpers going there, literally waiting, buying. I think you could only buy one maximum, but there would be like a group of people who would literally go in together. They buy them, and I think online right afterwards they were selling them for like hundreds of pounds.
I saw one
which
for
was
200.
insane.
It's like,
Yeah, if you look at the pricing now, because I looked up the Beefeater Pikachu just to like, get a look at the picture of it, and I call it the Brexit chew. Brexit chew back there is like going for like £399 at the moment, like randomly on eBay. Whether or not it sells for that price, I don't know. But I really wanted this other British Pikachu, and now it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get one. Unfortunately. But anyway, so the World Championship is going to be happening.
Yep.
It's going to have Pokemon Go for the first time, which is pretty cool. Speaking of Pokemon Go, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Go recently, and there is going to be the Pokemon Go Fest finale. So they've had events in Seattle, Berlin, and they've got one that just happened in Sapporo, Japan. Which nobody's been able to go to because Japan is not open to tourists right now.
Yeah.
But
Question.
Question.
How can you do competitive Pokemon Go?
There's PvP.
yeah, there's
So it's
you
not-
train your Pokemon.
Got it. So it's not the running around. I just imagine there's like 10,000 people all running around the city collecting all the different
No.
ones.
So the
I thought
battle
it'd be really
system.
cool, like people being out in the real world. But then I
I
suddenly
mean,
thought,
that is what the Pokemon Go Fest events are, though.
Hmm.
So
That's how when the game came out. That's how it was. The events when
Yeah.
Pokemon Go came out was just
Yeah.
hordes of people chasing after
Mhm.
Pokemon. It was great. I loved it.
So the Go Fest events are for specific areas, like I was saying. So either Seattle, Berlin, or Sapporo. But like you'll go to a specific park, like a location,
Mhm.
a location, and they'll have like it all set up for Pokemon Go. They'll have like tents and stuff,
I see.
and you can
And you
buy
battle on that site.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's not the PvP part of it. This is just like what they have in the game for the actual Go Fests are they have special research or special tasks you have to do. They have Pokemon that only appear during those areas at that fest, like specifically spawn there. If you buy the ticket, again, you get those tasks. You get the legendary Pokemon that'll spawn after you've done the tasks, and you'll get a bunch of stuff that everybody else in the world doesn't get. What the finale is that's coming up is basically everybody else is going to be getting access to that in an event that's coming. So all the stuff that the people who paid for to get it like super early and go to these events, will now be able to get like a dumbed down version of it for free worldwide, essentially. Whereas the actual PvP Go stuff at the World Championships is literally just going to be people sitting down with their phones, plugging them into their monitor
Tapping.
setup or whatever, and then just tapping away with your Pokemon. Because it does get really specific with Pokemon Go. Each Pokemon has their independent values, their IVs, which is essentially like you can catch Pokemon with really crap IVs or really good IVs, and then depending on how you like level them up to like their maximum combat power, sometimes if you have full IVs, usually they'll be more powerful, but sometimes you want different IVs for different situations. Like there's limitations on certain cups, whereas like their combat power can only be like 1,500, and if it goes over that, they can't be included in this limited cup.
Got it.
It's very, there's a lot that goes into it. So for PvP, it really depends on you have two moves in the game. So you have a fast move and a charge move. You use your fast move over and over and over again, and you use that to charge up your charge move, which is usually a more powerful move that you can only use once in a while. You also get yourself two shields to prevent the other person from hitting you with a charge move. So essentially the PvP gameplay becomes what is the best combination of charge move and fast move to get your charge attack either as soon as possible or if you're going longer for a more powerful attack, and then going in with your type advantages and trying to figure out a good way of setting up like for me personally, I've been doing PvP recently. I've actually done that on stream. I like to go in with a very fast charge attack at first.
I do the same.
Yeah, burn down the opposing player's shields and then switch out to something more powerful, so then I can just like completely destroy them and they have no way of defending themselves from that. But it's very different. Like if you look at the competitive level, like people will be like switching out Pokemon to other Pokemon that can take the hit better. There'll be people like counting the amount of like taps in terms of attacks that the other player is doing, so they can predict when that charge attack is going to come. It gets very, very like in depth for something that's so simple, which is crazy. So the fact that they're actually including it at the World Championships for the first time this year is actually very, very it's really cool, actually. And
I love the fact that the notion of esports is kind of being cast open to such a wide kind of type of games now. Like it's not just kind of angry people playing on Fortnite. It's kind of like
no, it's just angry people tapping their phone on Pokemon Go now instead.
Wearing the screen out. No, it's kind of like you can compete as an esport in a number of different ways. That's not just either sort of beating people up or shooting people.
Oh, totally. I'm waiting for that competitive Candy Crush esports tournament.
My mum will just do so well on competitive Candy Crush.
Absolutely kick butt at that one. That'd be amazing. Now they put out some new announcements for Pokemon Unite, which is their MOBA. I'm not really. Does anybody care? Really? I guess people who like Pokemon Unite. I just see that game as like it's a loot box central. They charge way too much for their costumes. I say that I've been playing Pokemon Go, I'm like buying stuff in that game, but yeah, like I don't know. It's that game's a little bit predatory to me personally, that particularly. But they have new events coming. They have like a Pikachu themed event, which everybody's a Pikachu in the game. Honestly, I don't think it's worth anybody's time. Buzzwole is coming to the game as well, and like Tyranitar and some other Pokemon are also coming to the game. They also had other announcements for Pokemon Masters. EX is getting like a trainer lodge. That's pretty cool. I hope you're able to like decorate that with your own style and stuff, because that's always been a fun thing about Pokemon games. Like when you get like a secret hideout, you just decorate it any way you want. And they also have Mewtwo coming to their free-to-play cooking game, Pokemon Cafe Remix. And you can even like hire them as your restaurant staff, apparently. When I did a reaction stream to the presentation. As soon as that came on screen with the art style from Mewtwo, I just started screaming, no, oh God, please, no. It just, I don't know. That particular puzzle game just does not look that appealing, especially when you...
I didn't know there was a Pokemon Cafe Remix puzzle game.
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of that, and that sounds awful.
Terrible.
But yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Well, maybe some mums out there will care about that, or not to be dismissive, but
wow.
it's not. It's not what I go in for unfortunately. Now,
It's also
the biggest.
incredibly sexist, thinking that it's because it's a cooking game.
mums or dads?
It's only interested to mums.
I was sorry, I
Mm.
was thinking
God.
puzzle games. I was linking it to Candy Crush, but okay, you want to go there? I didn't think that. You thought that. Okay, so
You just said it.
moving on from trying to make me out to be a misogynist, apparently. Moving on from that. God, this is the most heated I've ever gotten on the Gaming Mag podcast. I'm defending my honor. Anyway, so moving on, the important news that everybody was watching the Pokemon Presents 4 was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet news, because they're the 2 new big Pokemon games that are coming out.
Is it new though?
No.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, it looks like more of the same. Yes,
same.
it's now got open world. Yes, and now it's got multiplayer, which are things that I really, really wanted in the game. Apparently, it has new raids too. It has a new terrestrialized Pokemon too, which is essentially new Mega Pokemon, which is essentially new Dynamax, Z-Move Pokemon. They've always got to have the gimmick that like brings people in and that they can merchandise with like really, really fanciful stuff. I will say that the crystallized terrestrialized forms that these Pokemon have. Sorry, it's a mouthful, that word.
It's hard to say.
They're very cute looking. They do look nice. They look pretty good. Like they're all shiny and nice, and they're the best looking part of that game. But at the same time, it's like at this point, after how bad Sword and Shield turned out, how dumbed down from like the rest of the series, and like how I know they want to make him like new player friendly, but it just seems like at this point, Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are aiming at the lowest common denominator when it comes to Pokemon to make it as accessible as possible to everyone, where the game isn't really a challenge, where it doesn't really seem like there's that much effort going into the actual game design. Like if you go back and look at Pokemon Sword and Shield, the routes in that game compared to like the routes from the original game, it's like a straight line. It's just a straight line. You get to Victory Road at the end, and Victory Road, like in the original game, was this huge sprawling maze inside of a cave. In Sword and Shield, it's a straight line with trainers. It's Nugget Road it's Nugget Bridge from the original Pokemon. It's essentially that's what that is, and then you get to like the final town, the final like cup, and it was very disappointing for a lot of people, I think, except for the people who love Pokemon to death and just don't want to hear anything bad said about it. I've been arguing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going. I know what you're
I'm quite passionate. I'm quite passionate about Pokemon.
I have comments. It's fine.
Goddamn, I'm quite passionate about Pokemon. Okay, sorry for the audio listeners. I just pointed at my pile of plushies and like all the Pokemon cards I literally have in my hands right now. Like, I'm very, very passionate about Pokemon as a series.
As a result of that, do you think it's laziness on Game Freak's part that they've literally sort of just copy and pasted and haven't really lifted a finger in terms of any kind of stylings?
I don't know if it's laziness.
New?
I think it's ironically, I think it's like a budget issue and timing schedule issue, honestly, because I feel like there are deadlines that they have to hit year after year now,
Christmas.
and well, yeah, Christmas, and not to mention that they've been releasing games, and it's not necessarily the same teams like who were working on Legends Arceus and stuff. I'm not sure if it was the same teams. I'm pretty sure it was Game Freak though. I think it was a different team for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which released the same year as Arceus, Legends Arceus. But their turnaround now seems to only be 2 years maximum, a year to 2 years maximum, which is insane. This is absolutely insane. It's like there's not enough time to make a well-crafted Pokemon game, and there's definitely not enough time for optimization or polish, because like if you look at any of the screenshots that have been brought out, in fact, let me try and pull one up real quick. I had tweeted about this earlier, and this actually upset some people. Let me share this particular one. This screenshot, for instance, like how poorly optimized the game actually looks now.
So the problem is that is promotional images, and
this is an image that they've chosen as a promo. Yeah. That's literally what I said. It's like someone, like the white outline here, it's like somebody went into Photoshop and didn't know how to use the magic wand tool. That's exactly.
It's just awful. Like I don't expect like, and we're talking about like Red Dead earlier, like that was like hyper realistic, and I know it's an animation, but look at where we are in terms of like with the latest Incredibles 2 or the latest Pixar or something that has kind of like you still
Yeah.
can make
No.
you can make good looking animation, but it needs to look something a bit more than that.
Well, obviously, game design is a little bit different because obviously everything is
Yes.
rendered in real time. But a lot of people will say, well, it's on the Switch. What do you expect? I don't know. Like, a lot of other games on the Switch look really good.
Yeah.
The last Kirby game that came out,
Yep.
sorry, looks fantastic. It looks miles better. This has like anti-aliasing problems. It has
Yep.
low graphical textures. It just looks.
If
it doesn't look good.
if they can do Yoshi's Crafted World, where you can see the individual pieces of string that's holding up the pieces of
game looks
cardboard,
so good.
so beautiful, and it's so cute.
Yeah.
And then you look at this. You put those two games side by side. Someone will say that this game was made about 10 years ago.
It looks like a Unity fan game at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
a low res Unity fan game.
Yeah.
Like when I was watching the presentation, I thought, okay, is this actually what the game looks like, or am I getting like encoding issues on YouTube ends where it's like bit crushing stuff? And like to give them props, yes, they have improved. Sorry, this wasn't supposed to turn into a breakdown of everything wrong with Pokemon now.
And let's just remember we have audio listeners as well, rather than just people looking.
Oh, okay. So there's an image of a Wooper surrounded by an environment. The environment has low res textures and looks terrible.
One horrible texture.
Yeah.
They've improved the actual Pokemon models, and I'm assuming what they're doing is using the models from new Pokemon Snap because they were much better rendered. They were the higher res models that they were using. So the actual Pokemon themselves look decent. Like other than some slight anti-aliasing problems on the edges of them. Sorry, I'm gonna get a drink real quick.
Yeah, I mean, and it just looks shiny, and they haven't even bothered with a shadow.
Yeah,
it's just a kind of black blob underneath it.
I think my problem is that at least with Sword and Shield, or the Pokemon they showed were at least visually interesting, and the Pokemon they've shown so far for Sapphire, Violet
exactly. We can't. We
Violet.
can't even get the number. They can't even get the colors right because I just don't care.
Don't look, and like the Wooper, the Galarian versions of previous Pokemon looked really cool. Like Galarian Coffin looked great. And Galarian Farfetch'd, amazing. And this is just a brown Wooper.
Yeah.
As someone just said in the chat, don't worry, audio listeners, your imagination of this image is higher resolution than the image. Excellent contribution from chat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just tired of like Game Freak and by proxy the Pokemon Company just doing the same thing year in year out. That it looks like that all the innovation that they had in Pokemon Legends Arceus, like the new catch mechanics, the fact that you actually
I liked it a lot,
the crafting, all that cool stuff. None of it seems to be in this new game. None of it. Well, it remains to be seen because I've not necessarily seen how if there were catch mechanics outside of battling because they've only showed off like you throwing a Pokeball in a battle. But I highly doubt that they're
I feel like they would show it if they did have interest in catch mechanics versus the usual the way Sword and Shield. It looks like just an expansion to Sword and Shield, honestly.
Yeah, the problem that I have is that, and it's not even the problem with Game Freak at this point, it's a problem with the fans at this point. Like, I call myself a true Pokemon fan because I am willing to criticize the game and say this isn't good enough. This at this point, with there should be better expectations rather than just saying, it is what it is. Like we should. It's a kids game, obviously, but at this point, after growing up with the franchise, I mean, my birthday's on Pokemon Day. I was there like the first day the anime aired in the UK, watching it randomly on that day. I've grown up with Pokemon, and it just feels like the franchise hasn't grown with me, and that's really sad. Like what this series really needs, and I said this after Sword and Shield came out, is it needs something like what happened with Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild for the Zelda series was so refreshing in terms of like they just took that pre-existing formula and threw it out the window. And the Pokemon series definitely needs that. It needs something different.
It felt like it sort of had that with Arceus. Like it teetered on like having like kind of like just a redo of the series, but keeping the same feel. And then they just went back.
And now it just seems like they've taken steps back. Yes, there's multiplayer in this. yes, there's potentially raids, but I'm not getting my hopes up because a lot of the time, if I hear something like, "Oh, there's now going to be raids in Pokemon Go," there are raids in Sword and Shield. You walked up to a hole and you battle a
Yeah,
big
a
Pokemon
big
together.
Pikachu.
Yeah. I want to be able to actually explore with my friends going to caves. I actually want caves in the game, which apparently weren't in Sword and Shield. There weren't any like interesting locations to explore. Like the original
No.
games had like the power plant, which was just off the beaten path. You could go. It wasn't part of the main game. You can go explore. You can find a legendary at the end.
There was
The
Zapdos.
Yeah, there was Zapdos, the equivalent in and the obviously the islands with the other the legendary birds. The equivalent in Sword and Shield was a power plant underneath a place. You go down, you walk through you walk through into a different room, and that was it. It's like the game design just seems to be gone, and it seems to be
Slightly
let's
uninspired.
let's push out as many new creatures as possible because then we can make ancillary media. We can get the card game out. We can make new merch. We can just make money that way. And the I don't know, just like scheduling wise, the game doesn't have enough time. It doesn't look like it has enough budget. It looks like it's poorly optimized because of all of these anti-aliasing issues and just like no environmental design whatsoever to improve that, which is what so many people are upset about it. At the end of the day, this is the biggest media franchise in the world, and there is no earnest on the Pokemon Company or Game Freak to change what they're doing because it's going to sell regardless.
Yes, it's going to do well. I think that's the problem. They don't have to put in the effort because it will just it's like a blockbuster movie. It's going to do well. So why would you put the extra effort in?
I can criticize this as much as possible, but at the end of the day, I'm probably still going to get the game.
Oh yeah, same, definitely.
This is the other thing too. It's like it's
not a good relationship.
No, it's a terrible relationship.
Moving on from your abusive relationship with the Pokemon Company, from a poorly designed game to what is inevitably going to be an amazingly designed game, Grand Theft Auto 6 had some first news this past week.
It did.
And yeah, it's exactly about time. And some very, very good news it was too, because they confirmed a few things. One, we're going back to Vice City, aka Miami, which is fantastic and super exciting. And it kind of leads into some of the rumors that have been floating around online. But more importantly, we are now confirmed to be getting a female protagonist or antagonist, whichever way you look at it, but a female playable character, which is the first time for the series, and horrendously overdue. That is as well. And they also continued their news, obviously, with the GTA 5 remake. There was a bit of a letter writing exercise carried out by some organizations here in the UK that Game Mag was part of, that led to the removal of some of the more transphobic elements from GTA 5. So very proud of that. But also they're kind of getting they're reading the room a little bit, because they've committed this time that in GTA 6 they're not going to be punching down, by which they mean there's much bigger and much better things to take the mick out of, to have some fun with, than needing to kind of poop down on minorities or underrepresented groups, etc. And I think that's good. And I think what we talked about Red Dead earlier, I think Red Dead 2 was a lesson in the fact that Rockstar can do clever writing that can still skewer where it needs to skewer, can still satirize where it needs to satirize. But you don't need to have the jokes in the windows. You don't need to have the people on the street saying stupid things.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this. The fact that the new protagonist is going to be female too, which is like a first. And honestly, like, I'm not the biggest GTA fan in the world, but I'm kind of just going to enjoy the fact that the anti-woke mob is going to lose their minds, and probably has already lost their minds.
No, they have.
Over it already.
They have,
like,
all over Twitter.
That fuels me.
Quite
It's
glorious
like,
to watch.
Yes. I'm going to buy about 10 copies of it. Just because they are going to be short of some cash probably. But just because the anti-woke brigade are going to be complaining about the fact that they have to play as a woman, and they can't use transphobic names or anything anymore. And it's just like, get over yourself and focus on the fact that the best things about GTA series hasn't been the fact that you can run around calling people inappropriate slurs, but it's more about the biting satire of modern consumerism. That's the stuff that's always been good in GTA, and that's still going to be there. The doing crime is still going to be there. The running people down in high speed cars is still going to be there. And in fact, it's being led by a Latino woman. Brilliant, absolutely love it.
Oh yeah, like it's what was shocking to me about, because I've not played a lot of GTA games, about GTA 5 is that like the narrative was like extremely interesting.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're potentially like exploring this narrative set within that like satirical world with again more Bonnie and Clyde style pairing of female characters. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep, definitely. That's it for the bite-sized news.
It is.
I'm just gonna do my usual little DigiPride ad read. Later in August, we talked about it a couple of bits. We're just going to connect all the dots together now. Talking about our tabletop special, it's our D&D one shot using Mr. Dixon's Adventuring with Pride. It's your high stakes campaign, I believe. There you go.
Yes.
That's the
I
one.
have on hand. I have props.
Props. I love some prop podcasting. So that is on August 20th. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the audio listeners, Jack just held up a copy of his Adventuring with Pride book, available in all good places you can buy supplemental D&D things. What was I saying? So August 20th, that is right here on Twitch, on twitch.tv/GaymingMag. It is an all-star cast playing that game, led by the wonderful Cypher of Tyre. You can go and find out about the rest of the cast. We've got Milady Confetti. We've got other amazing people.
Some wonderful people.
GameMag.com/DigiPride. But yes, get back here August 20th, 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And that is raising money, as always, for the It Gets Better project.
Awesome. Now, funnily enough, that we mentioned Adventuring with Pride, because of course we are joined by the lovely writer, maker, creator of Adventuring with Pride, right here,
blush.
Jack Dixon. Yes, that's the idea. We always try and make our guests blush. So it's time for your spotlight, Jack. We're gonna get to know you a little bit more. So, Adventuring with Pride, as a concept, when did it all start? How did that come about?
So I think it was in 2019. We, my husband, finally, after quite a lot of convincing, got me to play D&D. I was quite, I was very much in the kind of stereotype watched American TV shows where it was kind of very nerdy. So I was like, I'm not gonna be into that. Played it and I loved it. And we have our own homebrew game, which our friend and collaborator Andrew Collins runs and DMs. And from there, it was a lot of I was a player and I had my own stories and my own stupid adventures in this world, and I really wanted to get them down, because there was so much I wanted to say and use as a jumping off point for an adventure. And it starts off with a few notes and a few paragraphs, and then you have a book series. It spirals out of control quite fast.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the things that struck me with the actual book itself is that there is a broad array of adventures that you can actually go on. So in terms of that, is that everything that you pulled from your own homebrew then? Is that those adventures you've been on yourself?
Some of those we pulled from our homebrew, some of them I've written from the go, and some of them I have creatively lifted from other, I play a lot of games, and you'll see that's such a good idea. I'm going to creatively borrow it, but yeah. But a lot of it was from our homebrew game, and a lot of the characters, it's unofficially a part of our homebrew world, but there is a clear divide because I'm not the DM of our homebrew world, and he gets upset when I steal his ideas.
Oh no.
So at what point of kind of having all these wonderful ideas did you suddenly think the rest of the world needs to know this? What was what inspired you to kind of start actually thinking, I'm going to create a supplemental?
So when we started playing D&D, I was big into homebrew and looking at things on DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG. And so people have written their own ones, a very personal adventures and homebrew stuff, but into very personal kind of sensitive subjects about them. And I found it really refreshing to see such unique stories. And I didn't really see much in the way of queer stories because to me, D&D was such a great way for me to be able to express myself. Growing up, I grew up in a quite impoverished part of London. I didn't really have the chance to have the way I grew up and realized I was gay and had gay stories was through The Sims. It was anything of character creation, like you said, me. It's like that's how I was able to express myself. And I think D&D has such a unique way that it can allow people to express themselves in a safe environment and find stories and find tales which have queer people in it. Like what Jeremy said, queer NPCs, queer stories helps normalize it to people. And I thought I could do it, and I think I did it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. I mean, your second edition, I believe that's called is it Queer We Go Again?
Queer We Go Again.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, sorry, I thought I was going to get that wrong for a second. Then, I mean, that of course is successful. I mean, that won the Tabletop Award at this year's Gaming Awards.
Yes.
I mean, like, surely, like, how did that feel when you found out about that? And does that not?
In the run up to the awards, I was in a bit of kind of like I was having really bad imposter syndrome. Like I felt like I was faking it until I make it, sort of thing. And the award was such a it came at a really important time for me where I thought about giving up because I didn't feel like there's so much especially as a tabletop creator and a queer creator, there's so much tabletop content out. You feel like you can get lost and not noticed. And I work really hard on the book, and along with one of the reasons I did the book as well because I wanted to find a way to help raise money for Stonewall and other queer charities. So I was slightly worried that I was kind of getting lost in the lot because it's tabletop games. That it's had such a large increase of players and interest over the past 5 years. So the award, I wasn't expecting it, honestly, because we was up against 30 Sword Lesbians, which is, again, props. I just picked up the book.
Amazing.
They've been doing such amazing work. I just assumed they were going to get it because they've been doing queer D&D, queer tabletop stuff for years, and it's like you could probably tell when I actually went up, or the fact that I actually had to bring my husband Alex up with me because I was like, I'm not prepared for this. Nope. We had nothing prepared. We had no speech. And I still look a complete fool in the interview. My mum loves showing me the clip. It's like, thanks, yeah.
I remember when you arrived at the theatre and I'm sort of stood there greeting everyone. And I sort of just generally asked how you were. And I think you said something about oh, I'm fine. I'm not going to win. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And literally in my head, I'm like, oh my God, you're going to win. Because I knew, of course, that you were going to win. I kind of was deep down, put a little bit was thinking should I tell him to get a speech ready? Or
no speech prepared. Nothing at all. It's it was there's an open bar, there's some free food. We can enjoy this. Yeah. So I was like, oh God. Now I need to think of a speech. I'm not a good public speaker either.
But it was so I was there moderating the Twitch chat at the back of the room. I make sure everything was going well, and it's always so humanizing and so wonderful to see again someone like yourself who wasn't expecting it, who wouldn't necessarily think, because with the imposter syndrome that you're deserving, which you are, of that, just to be in that situation. And I think the audience was definitely on your side in that situation there. And yeah, it was lovely. It's absolutely lovely.
Speaking of props, I still have it on my desk.
Hey, that's awesome. For the audio listeners, yes. Jack is holding up the Gaming Magazine Gaming Award that they received. Oh yeah.
I mentioned earlier that High Stakes, which is one of your storylines from Queer We Go Again, is being played in a few weeks' time for our All-Star Cast one-shot. are you excited for that? And two, can you set the scene for us?
I am. So at the awards, I got to meet Tanya, who will be DMing it. And just speaking to them was amazing because I'm really excited because the way we write our adventures, they're easy to be like adapted depending on the DM and depending on the characters. You can take bits out, put bits in. If we want it to be, it's hard to write adventures and try and keep it versatile for any sort of player type. So I'm really excited to see how Tanya is going to adapt the core adventure and put their own spin on it. And also, one of my favorite parts about writing is seeing people play it, especially on stream. In the way of like kind of like teasing it, I guess. So the players are going to Island Fortuna, which is a island casino where glitz and glamour, faux Las Vegas, very the way I describe it's like Ocean's 11, but fantasy. So it's a
We love a good heist. We love a good heist.
It's a heist.
Be gay, do crime.
Exactly, and it's very camp, which it's what
Always
I
good.
love. It's very it's got a very overall ABBA theme to it.
Oh,
that could be the spoiler.
you know what?
Okay.
I was already in. I mean, first you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. Hell
So
yes, let's go.
It's a Camp Ocean's 11 with ABBA,
Yes.
is what we're saying.
Yeah,
That's all you had to say.
that's
I'm there.
summed up.
I'm there.
You had me at Aber. Okay.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So moving forward, obviously now you're working on the 3rd edition.
Yes.
First off, is there a title for that one yet? And secondly, what drives you to keep crafting these stories?
So the title was hard to come up with because I think Queer Go Again was really good.
That's pretty good. That's top tier, that
It's a
title.
solid
Yeah.
title.
Also, it mixes my love for ABBA. So I'm like, until ABBA makes a 3rd movie with a catchy subtitle, I was like, I need to do something else. So
it's not ABBA related. Okay, we can put that.
And unfortunately, it's not. The original name for the project for Adventure in Pride was A Hero's Journey, as a play on A Hero's Journey.
Hell yeah.
So it's Adventure in Pride, A Hero's Journey is the
Hell yeah.
3rd book.
I love that.
And yeah, so when I was doing the 2nd book, I had so many like ideas and stuff. A lot of it got kind of put on the cutting room floor because there's only so much you can put into a book. And I just had like ideas. And after the book came out and after the award, I went back to them as more like a writing prompt, just be like, trying to. I find it better if I keep writing, even if it's like useless, rubbish stuff. I just keep on writing. It could get me better at writing. So I was using the kind of like ideas I didn't use in the 2nd book as just like writing prompts. And that quickly spiraled massively out of control to have another book. And I'm really happy with it. I think like it finally, so the book itself, the series has a very quasi-modern theme to it. It's a fantasy world, but there's things like Starbucks and social media. And I think that's a very fun world to write in. So it's very easy for me to get carried away writing kind of wacky, quirky stories which parody real life, but go through the D&D like phase. It gets kind of it's pushed for a very fun phase, and that's how, and it's what I love doing. It's writing these stories. I'm not a big with things like the mechanics and the math sides. That's not for me.
Yeah. It's more sort of like the role playing and
yes,
stuff,
I like
going on
like
these adventures.
Like crafting the stories and writing these queer stories and queer NPCs. I leave the maths to my husband and our collaborator Andrew Collins, who they're far better at the maths bit because they have a PhD in maths. So I'm like, yeah,
that would help.
I'm dyslexic. You do you can do that bit. I'll do the fun writing bit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's awesome. And like I just think of like how many people, like how many lives that you'll have affected now, and how many people will be going on their own adventures.
I know
with this book.
It's like I see occasionally I get people tweet at me like photos of like their group playing a game like that. Like I was at not EGX, Board Games Expo So I get my conventions mixed up. They all sort of blur into one expo. I had a few people come up to me and said that they used Adventure in Pride as like an introductory D&D thing as to jump off to do their own world, to create their own homebrew stuff. And I really love that because I wrote the Adventure in Pride with the mindset that it's accessible for not just new players but for new DMs, because I found D&D quite intimidating. Like not know nothing about it. I thought it's just rules.
Yeah, which is understandable. You look at it, there's like so much information, so many statistics to it. It's like, oh god.
Like, what how do you start? So I wrote them in the way where you can pick up and just play it as is, and there's tips, there's advice and stuff like that to really help people who kind of like are on the edge about D&D but don't really, haven't got the lifetime experience. But then again, when you start playing it and you realize that the rules for D&D are very flexible, and I think the first rule for D&D is to have fun. So and that's how it goes.
You actually, it's cool that you sort of said obviously that you really only started playing D&D in 2019. So it's actually it's a testament to how it's hooked you, that it's got you from that stage to where you are now. Yeah. What is it about D&D that if you boil it down to kind of like the absolute bare minimum, what is it about D&D that you enjoy so much?
It's, to me, D&D is sorry, give me a second. Just mind went blank for a second.
That's okay.
Like, for me, the best part about it, the thing I loved the most, what drew me in, was to be able to sort of it's improv. It's improv. You get given a scenario and you can do anything. You can be wacky, you can be crazy, and a table is like such a safe space for you to kind of, you find out a lot about who you are and the sort of things you're into. Like, it took me a while to realize certain things about myself, and being able to role play as different characters, to go on these grand adventures, and sort of, it brought me close to my friends as well. So those are things what to me really draw in D&D and tabletop games, because you get to live someone else's life, but you get to have their experiences. So it makes a big impact on you.
Honestly, I've never thought about it like that before, especially when you're like you talk about exploring like different like aspects of yourself, because it's still, even though you're role playing a character, it's still you. It's like how you would act as this other person. So you're still, you're still making those decisions yourself, and there's got to be the same thought processes there, but you're doing it in a certain way. So it's really, really cool to hear you like you're exploring like different aspects of essentially yourself. I've not really thought about that before. That's awesome. So let's go back to you starting D&D.
Yes.
And your experiences throughout. What would you say are some of the most memorable moments from the campaigns that you've been a part of? What has been like the most fun for you? Because obviously you've probably got a lot of stories, a lot of cool queer stories.
There's a lot. I'm like,
is there any like moments that you could pick out and say, this was amazing?
My introductory campaign to D&D was my friend Andrew Collins. He ran it for me for my character, who is a frog wizard called Zig. And because he crafted it for me, it was a kind of teenage love romance where you get in these two gay characters together, and you have to like build a party and do a rock concert, because like one's like a really goth character and one's like a really kind of like preppy character, and I fell in love with them instantly. I also stole them for the book. I'm like, they need to be somewhere else. And for me, it was, trying to convince a old man called Old Willie, that was his name, to be the kind of lead guitarist for this band, playing his guitar, which he called his Little Willie. And it just sort of spiraled out of control. And it's just like, it doesn't, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, you got the whole like world ending threat, but it's the very small parts of it which to me are the most memorable bits. Like we stopped an evil wizard, corrupting the land and raising the dead. But getting Old Willie to play his Little Willie in front of a band to get two guys to hook up, That to me was my favorite part.
It's always kind of like the unexpected and the weird. I remember like my first intro to D&D. I had to sneak into, like, somebody did like a small little one shot for me just to introduce me to like the whole idea of the game. I was supposed to like break into a like dragon's vault, and there's like a bunch of kobolds, and I messed up my rolls. I got captured, and then I had to, essentially what I ended up doing, this was pre-pandemic, mind you. Just as it was ramping up, I managed to convince this dragon that I was from some kind of agency, and that his lair actually had a very highly contagious dragon version of COVID. So they had to all clear out, and we had to do our inspections, and it probably would be better for him to go away for a bit, like, and just let us do our thing.
Health and safety gone mad.
Health and safety gone mad, essentially. And that was like pulled out of my backside, but that, as one of like the things I've done during D&D, that'll be the most memorable thing, because it's the most quirky and weird and like unique thing, and
the
like
most unique thing to you and your character.
Yeah, those are the things that you remember. Yeah.
So to finish off, you're on book 3 at the moment.
Yes.
What stage is that at? I think you're on your Kickstarter ring still, although you've hit your target, but you're
Kickstarter has now ended.
Oh, cool.
We ran it through Pride Month through June.
Yes.
We got a 16K for it, which was amazing.
Hell yeah.
In the process of writing, I'd say we're about 80% done. The first drafts of all the adventures have been written. It's just you need to go through the editing process, and you've got the art and stuff like that. But it's on track to only be slightly delayed.
Cool. That's in gaming terms. That's
honestly
bang on course.
In Kickstarter terms, that's amazing. I'm not even gonna lie.
We're only gonna be like a month off our estimated date for release. So
that's fantastic. Again, like all the Kickstarter stuff that I've been a part of, I'm pretty sure there's a game from 2014 that still hasn't released to this day as of yet. Still being worked on. But so you're doing fantastic.
You really underestimate how much time when you start a Kickstarter. You're like, oh yeah, I can do this in this time. That'd be easy. And then you're like, oh wait, I can't.
There's quite a lot to do.
Yeah. Also, I think it depends on the stretch goals too. Is like as they start like adding up too, it's like, oh god, I have given myself too much work.
And you get carried away with the stretch goals. You know, it's like, oh yeah, an extra adventure. Yeah, that's fine. It's like now I need to come up with a whole entire story. More subclasses. Yeah. That's future Jack's problem. Who cares? I hate past Jack. I hate him so much.
Oh no!
It's like, why did you do this to me?
But still, glad it has gone incredibly well. And so, when you say that it's only a month behind, what kind of time frame are we expecting for that now? For those that didn't back the Kickstarter.
So for the digital edition, because we do digital and hardback, we're hoping that the digital edition will come out late September, early October. I think on the Kickstarter we said early September, so we're not that far off. A lot of times, like again, you underestimate times. Like I like, yeah, we can do it in that amount of time. Forget that art takes time to make. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the bit which always gets me out because we hire a bunch of really talented artists to do the art. And I'm like, so I was given the art, then forget about it. And I'm like, it just shows up one day. I'm like, oh, look, here's the art. Lovely. I forget that actually has to be made. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, that's always a process. Like, I get a lot of stuff commissioned for my personal stuff. I do VTubing and things, and like the availability of artists as well. That's always an issue. It's like maybe you go back to them. Oh yeah, I don't have room for you at the moment. You're gonna have to wait till now, and you're like, oh well, I'm gonna have to reschedule some stuff. But yeah, that's awesome. That's something amazing that people can expect. Remind us what the title is of that one again.
Aquiro's Journey.
Yes, I love it so much. So, Adventuring with Pride, Aquiro's Journey, releasing in September, maybe. Yes,
let's safely say September.
September. Yeah, soft September, almost hard. Right. So we always finish with something we like to do on this channel. Is we finish with quick fire questions.
Oh God.
So basically,
I was not warned about this.
No, you weren't. We specifically do not warn our guests about quick fire questions because we like to keep it raw. We like to. It's a little bit of fun. So. Yes, exactly. So just say that, don't take too long to think, but just, whatever pops up into your head, that's absolutely fine. They're simple questions. So I'm going to let Robin kick this off.
Yes. What has been your favorite game this year?
So my favorite game this year, I've been replaying Stardew Valley.
Ooh.
So it's just been Stardew Valley, pretty much.
Hell
the-
yes. That is
like-
a good answer. It's quick
like,
fire though. So we're gonna speed.
I'm waiting for Saints Row. That's gonna be my favorite game of the year. Or do you know it?
I think you've covered one of the future
Just
questions.
answer the
Let's
future
go.
question, but we'll keep
Let's
going.
go. All right. So you're most looking forward to Saints Row. We'll skip
Yes,
that one.
yes.
What was the one game that defined your childhood?
Sims, definitely The Sims.
Okay.
Who's your favorite video game character?
Kirby.
Nice. Good question. What game do you most want a sequel to?
Oh God. My mind's just gone complete blank. Stardew Valley. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Stardew Valley 2.
Cool.
Let's go.
If you were in a podcast opportunity or a stream or a D&D, who would be your dream guest to sort of sit around a table and play some D&D?
Jeremy Crawford. I can't. It was amazing having him here. Like, mind blown.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Now, this is the question that we have to skip. So, Robin, you got the next one.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah. So if you were marooned on an island, it's a very technical island, but you can't call for help. What 3 games would you want to have with you?
Sims 4, Fallout 2, and I would go with Outlast. I like a bit of horror.
Nice.
Oh, interesting choice. So, which game would you say has the best soundtrack?
Halo 3, definitely.
Good choice.
Love
Good
good Halo.
choice. And this final question, you can take your time with this one.
Okay.
Yes. It is. Where can people find your content? What have you got coming up? All the shout outs, all the places people can buy your books, etc.
Okay, I'm glad to take my time with this because so much stuff. So at Jackophobia on Twitter is where you'll find my personal Twitter where I tweet random D&D related tabletop LARP content. So if you like that, go over there. ADV with Pride is our Adventuring with Pride Twitter, which is ADV with Pride. And that's where we'll have all our sort of specifically D&D related content will be posted through that. And we have, outside of the third book, we have a few kind of additional projects, tabletop projects we want to kind of push out. And we'll be using that specific Twitter to like promote and like gauge interest. So just any interaction there is greatly appreciated. And if you and if you're interested in actually purchasing the book, you can get it on the pocketworkshop.co.uk, which is the publishing company we use. So we can get the hardback and digitals there. So if you're interested in the book, go over there. You can pre-order A Curious Journey now, I believe, assuming that the email went through.
Hell yes. Jack, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing having you. And of course, shout out to Jeremy, who was with us earlier. I'm just going to post that Pocket Workshop in chat for the chat to take. And it'll be in the description for those of you who are watching this on YouTube and stuff. Right. And of course, a massive thank you to my lovely, lovely co-host, Robin. Thank you for joining me too. You're
always
both
been a
lovely
pleasure.
as ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell
And
yes.
I've thoroughly enjoyed our tabletop special. As
Yeah,
someone who's
me too. Oh my
it's
goodness.
always
Like,
a highlight and something to look forward to.
Like, I don't play a lot of D&D or TTRPGs. I want to change that in future. I'm actually like working on my own kind of like Pokemon themed homebrew. Oh god.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Why? Yeah, it's like it's impossible to figure out a system for that though. Like it's so difficult.
There's so many to choose from. There's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm looking at kids on bikes at the moment and just trying to like, will that work? Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, then you gotta take battles into account. It's too much.
Yeah.
Anyway. Thank you both. And thank you everybody for watching, listening, doing all the things, and joining us on this episode. We will be back in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of the Gayming Podcast Live.
We will indeed. And you can, of course, follow the Game Mag channel here on Twitch and on YouTube so you don't miss any of those shows. And, of course, podcasts can be listened back to at any time wherever you can buy good podcasts. And if you're listening to your podcast, get over to Twitch, subscribe, twitch.tv/GameMag, and you can watch. You can see Jack's props. You can do all those sort of things as well. All the visual cues that we talked about. You can laugh at the terrible Pokemon designs and stuff that we had to audibly describe to you.
Yes,
They're
very
bad.
difficult.
They're bad.
Of course, I will also be back later this week with
Yes.
Let's Go Gaming, and I think we'll be playing Cult of the Lamb. Actually,
You
which will
will,
be fun.
absolutely. That should be fun.
And yeah, we'll be with two of our gaming ambassadors, Panda and Coda Girl Chan.
There goes
For the
Kat.
audio listeners, there's Attack of the Cat. I think the cat now knows that we're finishing. But yeah, don't forget we have the charity one shot as well on the 20th. So make sure you come back to the channel, check that out. But in the meantime, don't forget to keep reading Gaming Magazine, and we will see you all very, very soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.